Hello, it's me again. I have more thoughts. Surprise, surprise. In particular, this message is for millennials, but I think it could apply to all sorts of people, younger and older. But what the message is about is the fact that when you have a lot of, conscious or not, past life energy or like old soul energy, there can be things that you don't resonate with the general zeitgeist of your overall generation. And I've grappled with that over time because there's like certain social cues and whatnot that are very learned, very cultural, you know, like imagine like a lot of people don't sit around thinking about like what is the average 14-year-old kid in Germany like, right? We know about like youths of our own territories, but there are waves of mannerisms and ways of being that are very culturally programmed into people. And I know about this firsthand from going to an international school for a period of time where there was just a lot of kids from other countries, all different countries. It was located in Asia, but there's a lot of like Dutch kids from different parts of Europe. And so that's especially interesting because that was a melting pot of different energies. And so it was more so the language of teenagerism, but from lots of different cultural amalgamations that ended up just being like the children of people who work for like the UN or in public health, and they are like expat communities of kids. Like, think about this. A lot of kids grow up like internationally. Like one of my best friends when I was living in Nepal, she was half British, half Italian, and her mother owned restaurants in Kathmandu, Nepal, and then a second branch in India, in Calcutta. And her father lived in the UK, I believe, but she lived in Nepal. Like, that's the strangest amalgamation of things. And she was a white girl that looks like she could have been like me. And my point in saying all of this is that I'm finding personally, and I'm sensing, like, for me, there's so many different things that I haven't been able to keep up with socially, not because I don't get it, but because it doesn't resonate with me. And so, like, an example of this would be, like, courtesy laughs. I simply don't have it in me to, if you're not genuinely funny to me, I'm not, like, of course there are certain things that are, like, impolite. Like, you can't be such, like, a strict person if you understand what somebody's trying to convey. But I just find myself not wanting to spend time with people that I can't be my true self with. And that's important because for example, something else I will share, this has to do with also the way that we handle and treat women and how available the current world makes it to just have things to say about the female body, the female presence, and the level of how appealing females are. I saw a really cool sweatshirt one time and it said, only respecting women who you find attractive is not respecting women. It's very true. I was like, I need to buy that sweatshirt. I didn't. I don't need any more sweatshirts. I can embody that without wearing a sweatshirt that says it. Okay, so I was with a group of people who I was just meeting. It was a social setting. This is probably about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Everybody close in age to me, okay? One mutual friend was the link to me introducing myself to this group of people. And like pretty soon into meeting these people, one guy says to me in front of everybody else, he says, "You look like you were built to be bent over a chair." Like as a compliment. And I pick my battles. I take the high road. In my mind, I was like, cool, buddy, you look like you were built to stand in a hole and dig while another man stands over you and watches. But I did not say that because everybody else laughed. And I like laughed too. I was like, that's okay. Thank you for admitting that you're envisioning me in a submissive sexual position. Do you feel powerful? Are you hard right now? It's very interesting, like what we make humor out of, and it's always at the expense of people and stuff. And I just don't have it in me. I moved on to something else, and I always talk about like how cheesy my rhetoric sounds, but I'm trying to pull the nuggets of truth, like tease apart, going back into like zooming into spider webs and making them into thick cables. There's a lot of misconstrued stuff that comes from inspirational things that are just falling on deaf ears all over the place, and I want to make those new again. I want want to buff them up and make them nice and shiny and clear and resonant for people in a repurposed fashion. It's upcycling. Upcycling cliches and shit. So, I think there's a lot of strangeness in navigating similar situations that we might have conducted ourselves in, not realizing that it's kind of just like abiding by these certain social guidelines that aren't fitting or truthful. Like in some ways, for me to just go along with that and like laugh and be like, okay, this is a weird moment, but it's funny. That happens a lot, by the way. I talk a lot more in defense of men because I think that's the less delivered side of the conversation around toxic femininity and toxic masculinity. I don't think it's necessary to talk about how much women have suffered at the hand of men because it's obvious. It's obviously the more dominant thing that happens, but you have to weigh both sides of it. But for very specific reasons, like I don't need to sit around and share all the examples of times when people have said weird stuff to me or like talked to me like people don't know who I am, right? If people talk to me in public about certain things and speak to me in certain ways, it is on me to reveal to them who I am. And I oftentimes choose not to do it because I'm like, I don't even want you to know who I am. Sometimes I have a great time just unleashing strange thoughts on people in public, like to strangers, because it's honestly what's on my mind. And I'm like, here's some food for thought. Bye. See you never. Very interesting how you can consciously mirror to people with a very subtle level of interaction that requires hardly anything out of you what it is that they've said or something. So if there's any like tension right now in the ways that you're feeling about the things that are around you, I see it as part of timeline shifting or moving into different realities or ascended states of being, because it doesn't happen all at once. Everything, the physical world translating the movement of energy, that takes time to reorganize itself and requires a deep level of patience. But along the way, there's all these little, I see barbed wire, right? Little splinters of things, and also just unwindings again, right? Little kinks in the knotting of how something is unwinding. It may be these moments of like tension, where you're having conscious connection to the way that things seem, and it's like, that's different. I feel differently about those things than I did before, and maybe by extension, that's like, I feel different about this entire group of people. I feel different about my entire relationship. I feel different about, you know, how much I'm in touch with I don't know. I think in the future, what we're going to see is that there's a lot less, for me personally, I've always had friends of like many ages. Like when I was young, all my friends were older than me. And I went through a period of being older and then having friends that were younger than me. And I'm at a point in my life where I have friends and their age ranges are speckled all over the map because, I relate to people. I don't relate. I could also use this to talk about like sexuality. Like I'm very feeling led, I'm very heart led, I'm very intuitively led, and it defies logic on many levels in many cases. So it's like if I fall in love with somebody, that's not gonna be defined by anything other than the feeling about it. And I think we can kind of extend that to other areas of our life where you could even see, oh yeah, going back to this where I was like, yeah, I gave a courtesy laugh to that moment where I was like, thanks for putting me on blast, dude. I mean, on some level, it was supposed to be a compliment, but I just think it's so ridiculous how socially acceptable it is to be critiquing female bodies so openly all the time. So to laugh along to that in some ways is like a violation of my own throat chakra, right? To not say the initial comment or like the clap back that came into my mind. Listen, I don't weaponize my insight in ways that I could. Like I could be unrelentingly ruthless. It's been years since I like publicly snapped at somebody or like yelled at somebody in public. I don't like that energy. You see people all the time. Like I'll be, you know, in a grocery store or something, and there's like people who are like bitching at each other in the parking lot. It's like, you guys don't even know each other. Like what happened? Like the mediator in me wants to go over and be like, what's going on here? Folks, that's not my business. That's not my place. In a similar application, that instance for me, it was like, what's really the truth here? Do I need to advocate for myself and say what's on my mind? It's really not worth it. The better thing to keep in mind is like, I don't like this person. I don't want to be around you in the future. That's the choice I make. So I'm not going against, like, it's like a pick your battles thing, and I feel like it comes down to discernment and like not being inauthentic, but releasing the desire to be known in specific ways so that it's like you can keep your chakras open by maintaining a truth that doesn't need articulation, as long as you take the proper action that's going to honor the expression of energy. And so it's like, you know, keeping the peace, or not being like, and because his comment is socially acceptable and it was deemed like a humorous insertion into that setting that we were in, everybody else laughed and thought it was funny. So I'm the weird one out, right? I'm the odd one out who would have like made the situation weird, or I could have done it in a funny way. To be honest, I do that a lot because, I mean, sarcasm and stuff. If you didn't know this, the root of the word sarcasm, if you break down the suffix in the sarcasm, it means to cut deeply. That's what that word breaks down to, the meaning of the word sarcasm, to deeply cut. Like, people who have grating, dry senses of sarcasm, it is intended to be kind of like a harmful thing, but I can be incredibly sarcastic because I don't know how to be straight up. But as I get more, you know, experience in just trying to communicate, there's no need to kind of sugarcoat things with that level of pettiness that a lot of people communicate with. And it's very, very tempting to do that, especially when you have like the answer, right? And I think that's a developmental stage. Like, you get into this place where you're like, well, I know, so I have to say it. Like, this is not true. Always. It's not always true. That's the second message. That's it. Okay, bye.